Hello everyone. Tonight I want to share with you a story that has haunted me for years. It's not just a campfire tale or a spooky rumor passed around at school. It's something that I lived through myself, something that changed the way I look at life, death, and the things we cannot explain. This is the story of what I saw in that room and why it still chills me to the bone. The beginning. When I was 16, snowboarding was my life. Every winter I went with my two closest friends, Nick and Wolf, to Nick's family cabin up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. We'd been doing this since we were 12. It was tradition. But that year was different. A few months before winter came, Nick's father suddenly passed away. He was always with us on those trips. He was the one driving, cooking, laughing with us late at night. His absence was a heavy silence we all felt as we drove up the mountain with Nick's mom at the wheel. The cabin itself was perched on the slope of a mountain. Half of it sat on stilts dangling over the hillside. The other half was built into the mountain itself. The wraparound porch creaked and echoed with every step. The front door had sleigh bells tied to the handle, so every time someone entered, the jingling sound filled the air. Inside, the layout was simple. Kitchen to the right, dining room to the left, then a small living space. Down a short hallway was the room where the three of us always slept. It was tiny. Nick had the queen bed in the middle, while Wolf slept on the top bunk, and I took the bottom bunk. There was barely any space to walk between the beds, and the darkness. Once the lights went out, it was absolute blackness. No windows, no neighbors, no distant streetlights. The only thing visible was the faint red glow of the digital clock on the nightstand. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard it, footsteps on the porch, heavy, deliberate. Then, the faint jingle of the sleigh bells as the door opened, a metallic clang, like a pot falling on the linoleum in the kitchen. I told myself it must be one of Nick's older brothers arriving late. But something wasn't right. The footsteps echoed as if they were still on the porch, even after they'd moved into the house. That shouldn't have been possible. The floor inside was solid. Then the footsteps came down the hallway. They stopped right outside our door. My heart raced. The door opened, and something walked in. It was a figure, a silhouette against total darkness, yet somehow darker than the dark itself. Its legs were impossibly long, its hips level with where a person's head should be. If it had been human, it would have stood 10 feet tall. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The figure turned sharply like a soldier and walked down the narrow space between Nick's bed and mine. My only thought was, please, don't look at me. It stopped at Nick's bed, leaned forward, and sank straight down into the floor. I stayed awake the entire night, staring into the dark, waiting for it to rise back up. The second night. The next morning, I carefully asked Nick's mom if anyone had come by. She looked at me with calm eyes and said softly, "I heard my husband here last night too." Those words shook me. I didn't want to believe it, but she was convinced her late husband was still walking the halls. That night, despite my fear, sleep never came. And once again, at around 3 a.m., it all repeated. The footsteps, the door, the sleigh bells, the pot falling. The figure entered, tall and impossible, moved through the room, and again bent down into Nick's bed before vanishing. By morning, I was a wreck. I confessed to Nick's mom in detail what I had seen. She listened, not with shock, but with sympathy. "I told you," she said gently. "It's just my husband." The third night. By the third day, I was exhausted, terrified, but trapped. We even helped Nick's mom buy a new coffee table that afternoon and placed it at the foot of the stairs. I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, nothing would happen again. But that night, the familiar ritual began once more. Footsteps, bells, the sound in the kitchen. Except this time, the figure did not come down the hallway. It walked into the lofted living room and climbed the stairs. My blood turned to ice. Above us was Nick's mother's room. The same entity that had disappeared into the floor 2 nights in a row was now directly overhead. My mind screamed with terror, imagining it coming through the ceiling, dropping onto me, or worse, looking at me. I must have eventually passed out from sheer exhaustion, because the next thing I knew it was morning. The final morning. When I walked into the living room, I found Nick's mom kneeling by the brand new coffee table we had brought in the day before. She was crying, not with fear, but with something like relief. Carved into the wood were 3 simple words: "I love you." That was the last time I ever went snowboarding. I distanced myself from Nick, and I never set foot in that cabin again. To this day, I don't know what I saw. Maybe grief can shape the mind in ways we don't understand. Maybe there are things beyond death that leave traces in the living world. Or maybe it really was Nick's father, trying one last time to let his family know he was still there. All I know is this: I saw it, I heard it, and I will never forget it.